It's one of those situations where somebody who deals with trauma in my work and who speaks so much, and words really are my métier, the words fail me at this point. Um, it's difficult to explain how I perceive the situation, but in a certain deep sense, I feel that it's the worst thing I've seen in my whole life. And it's impossible to compare atrocities. I mean, nothing compares with the mechanized murder of 5, 6 million Jews by the Nazis. Uh, what can compare to the slaughter of 3 million Vietnamese civilians by the Americans? The many murders and mass killings that are not even reported in the Western press, such as the Indonesian genocide in East Timor, such as the killing of 100,000 Guatemalan indigenous people in the 1990s by the American and the Israeli trained brutal military in that country. One could go on. But what is different about this is that I've never seen anything so publicly committed, such atrocities perpetrated on television, and the victims are presented as the perpetrators, and either this spectacle, this obscene, vicious spectacle that we're subjected to, is either supported or condoned by the major media, and all the politicians. Now, um, it's obligatory, and I think it's even necessary to say, this is my point of view, is that what happened on October 7th wasn't justifiable, that the killings of civilians, whatever details may yet emerge about intentions or what actually happened, that's not something that should have happened. That was something horrible, and it was an atrocity. But even the need to say that comes out of a culture in which the atrocities of the other side are never called out. No Israeli spokesman, when they talk about their policies, ever asked, "Do you condemn the pogrom at Hawara in the West Bank earlier this year? Do you condemn the killings of Palestinian children by settlers? Do you do you condemn the regular attacks by the settlers? Do you understand that the former deputy chief of staff of the Israeli army said that the situation of the Palestinians in the West Bank reminds him of the situation of Jews in Germany? Is this even reported in the Western press? And what he meant by is that the settlers, like the Nazi hooligans, are free to attack the Palestinians as the Nazis, thugs, the brown shirts were free to attack Jews, and the army and the police not only stood by, they aided and abetted them. Is the Western public made aware of the thousands of Jewish Israeli rabbis and historians and intellectuals who recently signed a document calling the present situation clearly apartheid? Are you aware that the former head of Mossad has said that the situation of the Palestinians under the occupation is apartheid? And so when anybody is asked to speak about perpetrations on the Palestinian side, they're immediately asked to condemn and to denounce and to reject. And yet, the daily suffering, crucifixion of the Palestinian people, and including and especially the people in Gaza, nobody's ever called to task. Nobody's ever questioned. And these smooth faced liars in the Israeli army who who would give lessons to Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels, who are masters of propaganda, like Goebbels never was. They're allowed to get away with it. Now, I'm speaking emotionally now. It's not helpful sometimes to speak emotionally because people get repelled by the anger or by the outrage that one generates. I understand the grief on both sides. I understand the sorrow. I've had communication from Israeli friends who are actually sympathetic to the Palestinian side, who are just in fear, who are full of thoughts of revenge. I get that. I understand it. But surely in this situation, whoever you are, whichever your side you're on, you got to get past your feelings. You can understand your feelings, you can accept them, but you owe it, if you want truth, and if you want peace, and if you want justice, you can't just go by feelings, feelings that are conditioned by decades of propaganda, decades of weaponizing the suffering of Jews as a baton with which to beat the Palestinians. You got to get past that. And you have to actually ask yourself, do I really know what's going on? Have I stood 1 second even in my mind in the shoes of the other? Have I tried to understand what's happening to those people? If they committed certain acts that are hateful, what drove them to that hate? Did the Palestinians come to Europe to attack Jews? Or did something happen in their land that made them so desperate? And finally, I'll only say that what happened there is not a secret. It's been documented. It's been written up by Israeli historians. I could name 5 of them right off the bat: Tom Segev, um, uh, Simha Flapan, Ilan Pape, um, many others by Israeli journalists. None of this is even vaguely controversial from the historical point of view. And the fact that we live in such a bubble, and this bubble is created by the same Western press that brought us the Iraq War and the weapons of mass destruction, and yes, the Kuwaiti incubator children, leading to the death of 500,000 Iraqi civilians. The same Western press that brought us the Vietnam War. When Martin Luther King spoke out against the Vietnam War, do you remember what the New York Times said? New York Times said, this time he crossed over the line. It's that same press. You might want to ask yourself, why are there so either passive or enthusiastic cheerleaders for this genocide? Are you really going to trust them? Are you going to try and find out for yourself? So, yes, I'm speaking with a lot of emotion now. I did give it into you an extensive one, a longer one, not so emotionally laden as these words have been now. But in light of the latest news from Gaza, with the apparently the cell phones, the internet being cut off, and
Yep.
the bombings being escalated, you know what? I'm upset. I'm really upset. I have a lot of feelings of pain. I know what happened to my own people. Nothing that happened to us in any way justifies what's going on right now.